Hello everybody, I'm Pontius, and welcome back to Unexpected Awesome. One of my favorite ways to find movies is to just stumble upon them. Public libraries, thrift shops, personal collections of people that I know, as well as the various odds and ends you find free online streaming services such as Tubi Television. Almost all of this can yield a rich bounty of fascinating and intriguing movies to introduce you to whole new worlds you not only never knew about, but great stories that might have eternally slipped your gaze had you not let yourself step outside of your comfort zone. As such, The Four Feathers, the 1978 action historical war drama TV movie by Don Sharp, is probably one of the best movies that I've stumbled across recently, and shows how even a more modestly budgeted affair can deliver thrills, action, adventure, and romance with a far more deft and subtle hand than many contemporary films just outright struggle to. The story follows a young British Army officer named Harry Faversham as he struggles to win back the admiration, trust, and respect of his friends, father, and fiancé, as on the eve of his resignation of his commission during his engagement party, he receives a notice that a war is just kicked off in the South Sudan with the various dervish states contesting their sovereignty, not wanting to be sent to what he considers to be almost his certain death. He decides to burn the letters and feign ignorance of their arrival to avoid being sent to war. However, upon returning to the base after the party, his friends find out not only the notices were sent out, but they were received. Unable to substantiate their claim of desertion, they decide to instead privately shun him, sending him their cards with 3 feathers attached to them, each one marking him a coward and less than a man. His fiancée sees this and inquires as to their meaning, to which he explains. She in turn gives him another feather, and departs in crying and shame. His father all but disowning him, his fiancée deserting him, and his friends shunning him, there's nothing of value left in Harry's life, as only chance itself saves him from the barrel of his own gun. He decides to personally venture out to the Middle East to enlist with the local scouts the British Army hired in the area, and in doing so, not only meets up with a wise old man of the desert with his own personal axe to grind against the various dervish states in the region, but he also finds himself saving all 3 of his friends on 3 separate occasions. His best friend and rival for his fiancée's hand from a creeping ambush in the middle of the desert by a small army, to which his friend in his desperate defense and seeking of glory accidentally blinds himself. He is then told by Harry to go back and tell the fiancée of what he is hoping to achieve, to which, in his attempts to win the heart of Lady Fair, he holds back. His second friend he saves from a baited trap of false diplomacy, as the army officers are lured into a bar filled with assassins, with only the intercession of our hero saving them, and ultimately informing Ethne of the rival's duplicity. And finally, the third man has been captured and sentenced to slave labor in a POW camp, with which the Desert Scout and Harry have to infiltrate and engineer a daring escape, as well as the final return of his friend. His friends returning home and disenchanted with the glory of war that they were told of in their youth, the glory for which they shunned their friend, and his blind friend now learning of not only his return, but also his imminent rejection by Lady Fair. The treacherous friend departs from her with a story about seeking out the help of German eye specialists to help cure his nigh irreversible condition, giving her a way out to go back to her true love. As such, upon his return, Harry informs his father that despite his heroics, he's not going to be rejoining the army, and he's instead going to raise the future generations of their family to avoid war and to live honorably and with integrity. And returning to his lady love, who saw through the error of her ways, gets taken back by him, and they live happily ever after. Before we get into the prodigious prose, let's dive into the handful of the cons that this film has. Being made in 1978 on a TV budget, they did not have the greatest casting for extras. Taking place largely in the southern Sudan region, there are quite a lot of people from that region represented by those not of that heritage, including the casting of the mentor figure, with his very European blue eyes and the incredibly bad wigs and black skin tar used to make the various dervish extras look vaguely like the combatants the British Army would have fought in that region. Zulu, this most certainly is not. There's also the simple fact that while the rest of the supporting cast does an incredibly solid job, the leading man of the film, Beau Bridges, is the oddest choice I have ever heard of to play an English lord. However, despite those relatively minor issues in comparison to the story's ambitions, You have in the script and direction one of the most remarkably well-told and concise stories of heroism, honor, and integrity I can possibly find. The dichotomy of his friend's search for glory and Harry Faversham's personal fear of dying, mixed with the bravery he shows in protecting and saving their lives, it's a tale of redemption as potent as it is straightforward. Back this up with possibly some of the best direction I've seen in any movie, TV or otherwise, and you've got a remarkably well done film. When people say that this shot should be taught in film school, there are legitimate examples of it inside of Don Sharp's The Four Feathers. Shots such as the tracking shot of a hand of a blind man as he seeks to open a door for a woman he's trying to convince that he's beginning to see again. The subtle shift in editing as that same man, when he has sight, stares longingly at the object of his desire as she's playing a piano serenade for the various guests of her own engagement party, all the way to the slow creeping realization that the moving ground with the far-off camp is in point of fact an entire sea of enemies seeking to assail it and claim the heads of its inhabitants therein. The Four Feathers is an outstanding film with good dialogue and overall great performances from its cast, including the incredibly lovely Jane Seymour in her prime. If you're looking for adventure, romance, and glory, then The Four Feathers is a rare and superlative find. Stay golden, chaps.